Hello and welcome to this new Churchyard Ramble. I'm Jeff Richards and I'm one of the trustees of the Friends of St Nicholas Churchyard. We are living in extraordinary times. We can't meet together. Sutton, like the rest of London, has just gone into the second tier of restrictions with coronavirus. And because of this historic time, it is a perfect time to explore our history. We can't do that in the churchyard, we can't meet in persons, but instead we can explore online. Now, these videos are brought to you really by the encouragement of Enjoy Sutton and the Sutton Civic Society. Enjoy Sutton are the fantastic group of people. They're the 450 odd businesses that make up central Sutton, and I couldn't do this without their encouragement. Also, Sutton Civic Society are fantastic because they are the critical friends of the borough. If you follow their social media, you'll see that they are doing a lot of sharing of news and really the changing shape and face of Sutton. And they are, as I say, critical friends of the council, so they're good people to join in with and learn more about. So seeing how our voices can make sure that together Sutton is a great place to live and work. I'm going to be touching on some matters of history, of course, and if you are interested in history, then please do explore Sutton College's history and culture classes, and you can read all about those at suttoncollege.ac.uk. So what are we going to look at in today's ramble? Well, I want to take us way back. I want to take us back to really the 1850s. This was the period of time when Sutton is changing very rapidly. Actually, I want to take you back to the 1840s. So this is before the coming of the railway, when Sutton was still a very agricultural place. Here you can see a map. I think this is actually from a little bit earlier, that from the 1820s, but it is still showing Sutton as this small place with really not many fields that have been enclosed yet, even. And you can see here that this is the church that would have been around. This is from the 1800s. This is a picture from around 1800, but essentially this is the church of St Nicholas as was. And as was is when a particular family moved into the area, and now they're interesting because they represent the social change that is taking place within Sutton, and representing through that really the social change that is taking place in the driven by the economy changes in Britain in the time of imperial development and commercial expansion and the Industrial Revolution. You've got a small country church. It's starting. The place is going to start growing very, very, very rapidly, and you have a country that is in 1840s experiencing increasing urbanization, with a desire for people who are wealthy within traditional city families being able to escape into the country even more, even these rising middle class servicing the empire. Now, today's ramble is nowhere near as prepared as I wanted it to be, and this week work has intervened, and really there has been quite a lot on my plate this week. But this ramble is about a family of bankers that took up residence within Sutton, and it's the family of Francis Gosling. Now, I was intrigued by this because up until really, in my mind, I identified the pivoting point, really 1845, which is when Thomas Alcock became Lord of the Manor and instituted very rapid change. But of course, everything is foreshadowed because the railway was already being planned for 1845, and before before that, there were people who were, if you like, on the up, who had identified Sutton as a place that they wanted to live. They saw development potential within it, and you have people changing as well. So you have the Lord of the Manor at the time in the 1840s was a guy, early 1840s was a guy called Thomas Hatch. Thomas Hatch, the Hatch family is just a peach. At some point, I want to be able to tell the story of the rise and fall of the Hatch family in some details, but they're an example of sort of clergy squires, because the Hatch family had managed, they were fully into the church and were the vicars of various places, including Sutton and Walton on the Hill and Walton on Thames, and Thomas Hatch was the Reverend Thomas Hatch was the Lord of the Manor of Sutton, but he didn't live in Sutton. So you had this empty manor house in Manor Lane, and that had been let to a guy called Francis Gosling. And now I mentioned that in a couple of articles or a couple of rambles a little while ago. But what struck me was I was reading the Victorian history of Surrey, and I was looking at Sutton again, and I read where it talked about the communion plate. That's the silverware and the goldware which is used in communion in the Christian communion Eucharist service. And so you've got the communion plate consisting of a silver chalice of 1843, inscribed, presented by Francis Gosling, Esquire, to the parish of Sutton in 1843. A silver paten with foot of the same year and bearing the same inscription, silver flagon of 1842 bearing the same inscription, and a silver paten of the same year also bearing the same inscription. And again, that is all indicative of somebody who is endowing the church in which he is worshipping. And so it struck me, who is Francis Gosling? And why is he being so generous? And so 1843 is this year that we should know about. Now, Francis Gosling was born in 1785. He was born in Fleet Street, and he's the grandson of Sir Francis Gosling. Now, the Goslings were bankers, and his grandfather, Sir Francis, was a partner in Gosling's Bank. Later it became Gosling's and Sharp, but it was based in, as I said, in Fleet Street. It was number 19 Fleet Street, but the bank had been formed at the sign of the Three Squirrels in Fleet Street. The Gosling's Bank is important because you've got this banking dynasty and with different partners, and it was eventually going to become one of the banks that was a constituent bank when Barclays Bank was created in 1896. And so this is a bank that is really tied into the Barclays dynasty as well. And so we've got a Barclays Bank in Sutton, and there's that historical link. We can even see the sort of, if you have a look at this check, we've got the idea of the Gosling check signed by that comes from the early days of Barclays, still with the name of Goslings within there. What we do know about the Gosling family is really down to some fortunate finds. For example, we know that he had Francis and his wife Caroline Jessie had I think at least 6 children. You had Maria, who had been born in 1834, Jessie, 1839, Caroline. Actually, she's the oldest. She was born in 1833, and then. They had a boy, Francis, and then another boy called Charles, as well as, I think, another daughter, Anna. Now, we know a little bit about the girls, especially because they were confirmed while the family were living in Sutton. So they had started to live in Sutton from around about the 1840s. So they because of the gift of 1843, we know that the family must have been living there before, or that's the earliest that they can be living there. And they were confirmed when they were about 15, each of them, in the 1850s. Now, that's too late, really, to start thinking that the gift of the church plate was down to that generosity associated with the confirmation. It's not. But what I find quite interesting is that the Gosling family have the lease of the manor house. They're living in the manor house, and they were so prominent within the area that in some of the records, what had been known as Wibble Lane, Manor Lane, actually for a while was called not Manor Lane or Wibble Lane. It was actually called Gosling Lane because everyone knew where the Gosling family lived. But they weren't the lords of the manor. And you have this interesting crossover because he'd been living there from the 1840s early 1840s onwards. And of course, Thomas Alcock became Lord of the Manor in 1845. So we now know that Thomas Alcock wasn't living in the manor house because the Gosling family were living there until Francis Gosling's death in 1856. And so Thomas Alcock must have been living elsewhere if he wasn't living in Sutton himself. And that raises the question of really how did, for example, Thomas Alcock and the new Lord of the Manor and got Francis Gosling get on? Well, it seems that they got on fine, certainly well enough to be able to collaborate on projects. So they are both listed as beneficiaries or donors towards the establishment of the National School in West Street. And so in 1852, a piece of land on Sutton Downs is rented at £4 per annum to be sold, and the money used to build a school and residence. And so that's really Thomas Alcock starting to drive that. And then the date of 1845 is engraved over the schoolhouse porch. That's the year. So that's the year that the school was made, and Mr. Gosling of the Manor House gave the site. So he found he bought the land for the school, and it was Mr. Alcock who made a generous contribution towards the house as well. So I suspect that what's happening there is there are two wealthy people who are understanding that they have to use their wealth for the benefit of the community and education of the people of Sutton is a huge public good. Okay, I am going to end my ramble here because I don't have much more to be able to tell. I'd like to be able to show you the monument. There is a monument to Francis Gosling within St. Nicholas Church. I'd like to be able to show you the plate as well, but this is not we're not in a position to do that, and I haven't been able to get into the church to do the photography that I wanted to do. And that's simply one of those things that is down to the circumstances of COVID. But I do hope you have enjoyed this ramble. I do hope that it's given you some thoughts. There are lots of other much better researched and put together videos if you go and look at the video channel on YouTube. If you want to know more about the historical context of the 1840s, 1850s, then do check out Sutton College's history and culture classes. As I said, we've been living in a historic time, and I'm glad that we are able to explore this together. But so long, Sutton. Your history